Welcome to Flying Upstream, the podcast where we uncover the choices, practices, and wisdom that defy mainstream conventions. I'm Kristen.
And I'm Louisa, and together we're here to illuminate the alternative paths that have shaped human experiences through the ages. In each episode, we'll examine ways to move beyond societal norms. We're passionate about how timeless wisdom and unique lifestyle choices can foster healthier, sustainable, and enriching lives.
Join us as we navigate, challenge, and celebrate the beauty and insight of walking the road less traveled. If you've ever felt like you're flying north for the winter while everyone else is flying south, you found your flock.
Free spirits, welcome to Flying Upstream, the podcast that celebrates unconventional wisdom and challenges the mainstream. Today, we're diving deep into the world of conscious creation. Join us today as we explore a unique perspective on life, the experiences of a conscious creator, and the lessons learned along the way. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and empowered. And, of course, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the goodness in our future episodes.
Yes, our guest today is Jens. He's the expression of a true alchemist in his life. He's a backpacker, entrepreneur, content creator, mystic. He has managed to go from giving away any and everything he had, trusting that every step leads him to the life that awaits him. He is love and kindness and bravery and persistence, the very manifestation of a conscious creator that knows of the privilege to think for oneself. Jens, welcome to the Flying Upstream podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here. So great to see both of you and just being invited to this thing. It's such a pleasure. It's kind of surprised to hear all of these things, because like 3 days ago, Louisa, you wrote to me and I was actually completely, I've forgotten all about this podcast, and I was supposed to attend it. I was like, okay, I have 3 days to prepare all of this stuff. And the thing is, when you just like explain all the things before, it's like, oh my God, this is like such a long time ago. So much has happened since then. It's incredible, like a whole new life all of a sudden. So I'm really, really excited to see where this goes and what inspires some people and turns people on in this conversation that we're having here today.
I love that. I love to hear that. And you did mention that. I was so excited to be able to ask you right here in live. I'd love to understand. You said so much has changed. Can you talk about where you were before and then talk to us about where you are today? And then we'll deep dive into that.
Right. So for about 2 years, I have been living from hand to mouth. That means I've not had any income at all, like not at all. I had a job before at the holistic doctor's clinic, and I was studying body therapy and had like my own little thing doing body therapy. But I realized this life was just like a prison to me. And so I went through like a deep meditative state of some kind, and I got a vision, to put it in short. And this vision showed me to go to Italy. And I made the decision to go to Italy, to go and live there. Within 14 days, without having any money or anything, I managed to come to Italy in a very short time. I expected to walk there for 30 days or something like that, I estimated. Ended up being there in 2 days with buses and such, because one of my friends gave me the money for the whole tour and such. And I ended up living there in like a spiritual community for like 7 months. And every month I just switched places between these different kinds of work exchanges and such. And one day I was shown to go to India as the next step of the vision. And I went to India for 2 days without even knowing if I could go to India. I was just like, okay, if I have to walk there, that's what I'm going to do. So I went there, and I was there for 2 days, because on the second day I was just sitting for myself thinking, what did I came here for, actually? I just followed my vision, and now I'm in India, thousands of kilometers from what I used to call home. And I realized I was looking for something external, like something outside of myself. I wanted to find a guru that could just enlighten me or something, just give me this, give me that, and show me the way. And I realized I'm not going to find anything external. And then I realized, okay, it's internal. So what am I doing in India? I was like, I have no idea. Okay, where I'm going now? Back to Denmark. Fine, I go to Denmark. And so I went back to Denmark without knowing if I had the money to go there. But I did go there. and I ended up there. Even there was like different kinds of, let's say, difficulties, obstacles, but the Lord granted everything that I needed for travel, and I went back to Denmark. And I went to my mom's place, got kicked out a couple of months later because my faith, you can call, some people call extreme. Like I go through the extreme sometimes with in terms of faith and just the whole journey is a very manifestation of that. Like not many people without any money go on a journey like that. And this is hard for my mom to stay in, like really hard. She couldn't really tackle it that well. And I ended up being homeless for a month. Well, lived in the woods. I only had like a hammock and a tarp. And every morning at 7 o'clock, I woke up. I went to work out for a couple of hours. Then I went to the library. I was around maybe 9, 10, and I was there to 8 o'clock in the night when the library closed. I went back to the hammock and I slept, and I woke up the next day and did the same thing every single day for a whole month like that. And then I went to Copenhagen because my electronics didn't work out. I was doing like I started my podcast, I was starting my vlog on YouTube as well, called Yeshua Focus, and the podcast is called The Matter of Trust. You can find that on YouTube as well. And I needed my phone for like editing and videos and making all these tapes and such. Well, so my friend invited me to his place to live with his family, and I was there for 2 months until I got invited to church. And this is where everything changes because I've been working hard for making my career in entertainment, and I finally got a job on a sitcom, like a web series. So I was just ready to go for it and go and do that. But I was invited to church on that very same day we were shooting the first, and somehow I was just more excited about the church. I was like, this is interesting, you know. I never thought myself of like a Christian in that sense before that. I knew there was something greater that always helped me, but I couldn't like quite put my finger on what exactly it was. And I went to church as early in the morning, and I just realized what it was. I realized what has always carried me and who has always been there for me, and it was just God and Jesus. It was just as simple as that. And for me, that was like, okay, well, thank you first and foremost. And what now? so So I went to this place where we were supposed to shoot, and I told about the whole thing. I told them, I just saw Jesus, and I got introduced, and now I just realized that all my journey, I've just been studying like personal development, spiritual development, and all these kinds of things. And all of a sudden, I just realized that everything is just in this one book, like the Bible. This is mind blowing to me, and I'm sure they were like, "Okay, you're not," but I I was convinced. I didn't need to see anything more. I was like, okay, I found it. Finally, it made sense to me. Like that very center point of everything, the very creation of everything, God itself. And since then, I've just been living a Christian life and devoted myself to being a Christian. And everything has changed. I put everything in God's hands, like, for example, relationships. And a week later, I meet my chosen one. And also, like, I put everything like my work. And suddenly, I have work here in the church, and I have like all the instruments I used to play before. But since I traveled and all that, I couldn't have it with me or practice it on a regular basis. Here it's right there, and I mean, everything just works like all of a sudden, just by giving my will to God and giving my heart to God. Everything just manifested. So that's in short what happened. In short, there's so many in there. So I know I probably dragged a little bit out, but I'm sure that this will serve the greatest purpose, definitely.
So Jens, I'm curious. It sounds like you've had an amazing adventure so far. I'm sure there's more to come too. And
Cool.
I'm a little curious about going back even further because it sounds like a lot of your journey that you've just described was about you looking for something. You mentioned you had been meditating and you were called to go to Italy, to India, to different places. What was it like before that time for you? Did you always feel like you had a certain gift, like as a child, before you were realizing that there was something else you were meant to do in life?
Right. I was always curious, and I've always been very seeking in my approach to life. As a child, I wasn't exactly sure about my gifts. I thought maybe they were more curses than they were gifts back then.
Mhm,
For
mhm.
example, I was around 10 years old. I could describe, I had two voices in my head, one called Demonica and one called Justitia. And only now when I've become Christian, I know exactly what that is and can put those things apart and know what is love and what is not. Definitely not love. And that way guide into the benevolence of what life really is. So for my whole life, up until a couple of years ago, actually, I've been having a life full of depression. I'm having a lot of depression. I've tried to commit suicide multiple times. I have also been diagnosed because of drug abuse with paranoid schizophrenia once in psychiatry in Denmark illegally. They gave it illegally to me because we have a legislation in Denmark that says that you have to be clean for at least 3 months before you can give a diagnosis. But they didn't. They gave it within 2 weeks, so and I wasn't clean, so whatever. But I always knew when I talked to these kind of professionals that there was something they weren't aware of. Like they thought it was something about an illness or a chemical imbalance or something like that. But I always knew there was something more to it. And for many years, I thought it was shamanism or extraordinary consciousness or awareness or something like that. So for my whole life, I actually been battling for my mental capacity, my mental stability and peace. It's been very rough in many different areas. Also, my relationships, as I mentioned before, has been some of them have been terrorizing, and some of them I have been terrorizing, and it's a big chaos in general. Until recently, very recently, where it just changed. Like always had that mentality that God only needs just one moment, a split second of change, and that's it. That's it. Then it's set, then it's done. That's all he needs, and that's exactly what happened to me. Exactly what happened.
Do you feel like your travels were a contributing factor leading you to find God?
Definitely, the whole travel thing was like a manifestation of faith because I remember I had no money. When I made the decision to go there, I was flat broke. I couldn't pay my rent. I had to dumpster dive to get food and that kind of stuff because I spent all my money on self development and such. All my money. I didn't care at all. I only had myself to concern about. So I was like, okay, well, if this is what it takes to just get me to the next stage, well, whatever. I'm going to do it. And so I gathered like these different kinds of things by faith, knowing, okay, there's a solution for it. I know there's a solution because there's something greater holding me at all times. And right now, I got like a backpack that I still have over here, and the shoes for wandering, and like a stove kitchen for outside, and 5 kilos of rice, and these kind of things. It just appeared. And the travel itself, I couldn't afford. I thought I should walk there, like I mentioned before. And 2 days before I leave, my pal comes and gives me money for the travel, and it matches just with the exact amount that I need. I think I had 20 cents in euros when everything was paid and all that, like completely fair. Like everything just perfectly worked out. And the same thing with India. I had no money. I didn't have a regular job to pay for anything. So I just essentially had to just, okay, I have to speak it out loud to the people that I love and just trust that everything's going to be all right. Even if I have to walk, I'm so motivated to go. So I'll just go if that's what I have to do. But 2 hours after I told my Italian family about this thing about India, my spiritual mother came with, I think it was just enough for the ticket and just enough for the visa and just enough for me to take a train from Mumbai to Goa when I reached in India. The same thing when I went back. So the whole thing, also in Italy, when I had to move from different places because there was no certainty. I had no place to sleep or live even. There was no certainty for anything. I just came there and said, hello, where do you want me? I'm here. So where do you want me? All yours. And I was for one place for 1 month, the next place for another month without any security. I didn't know if there would be a place next time, but somehow it just worked out. And that's because of this one thing, faith in God, faith that something greater is having me at all times, like no matter what. And that has been the most crucial part of that journey, really getting that faith and trusting that no matter what you need, no matter what kind of situation you're in, God will provide. And that's valuable because not many people actually dare to do. Many people think they have to go and get money all the time. Like, we have to work to get this money. I understand if you have a family, of course, but if you just yourself, like, no, you don't actually need to. The thing you really need to live a life fully is faith. I mean, in the beginning, you can believe in all kinds of stuff, but at a certain point, there comes a realization where you have to realize where this one source is all about. You know, I
That-
mentioned his name. It's all about the Lord, all about God.
Yes, I want to pivot for a minute here. So, you also have a podcast. And in one of your podcast episodes, you mentioned someone needs your medicine. Can you tell us what that means to you?
So I mentioned that because whoever you are set here for a specific reason. So you're not here by mere chance. Like, that's ridiculous to think anything is by chance. So what I mean is that you have a certain purpose that your God, like God chose you to be here with. So He has a purpose with you. So whether it's you knitting like a myth or something like that that someone really cares about, you passing a salt to someone, or you actually speaking out to a loud crowd, or reaching out on a podcast, or making creative content, or anything like that, you have a medicine in that because that medicine is what God gave you to give His medicine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. I think it's really important what you're sharing because I think a lot of times a lot of us get lost in this idea that in order for us to share our medicine or of ourselves or for us to do anything, that it has to be done in a specific way, that it has to be done how the prior person did it, that it has to be done, that it has to look like this and we have to walk this way or talk this way. And I love that you share that because it is true that we each have our own purpose and there is someone else that needs to hear the way that we say it, that needs to see it the way that we walk it, the way that we do it, because that is the way that's going to be most impactful for that other person. But I also want to ask you something because you've overcome a lot. You just shared about your journey, how you lived on faith. You just literally on faith. What strategies did you use to overcome the fear and the doubt that were a part of that path that you chose of living on faith?
Right, right. That's a very good question. I'll try to answer the best way I can because, like, when we're so good at something and it feels natural to us, it's very hard for ourselves to see because it's such a natural thing. It's so subconscious, you know. And this is one of the things for me. My faith per natural as being a kid and such has always been immense. I always believed in things that I could not see before they were there. I had no problem about that. So what really made the change consciously for me was to study different kinds of self-development things and spiritual development and even getting an education in like an alternative kinds of healing arts. These kind of things showed me principles of God. So in the Bible, it says, for example, that we are made in the likeness and the image of God. And the likeness is the spirit, like the Holy Spirit. So that's that spirit you feel when you're acting in God's will and you're coherent with God's will of you and yeah, the whole being. And there's the image. The image is the expression of that likeness of God. And for me, it's all about those two things simply. It's about, okay, well, there's a certain feeling when the Holy Spirit is over me, and there's a certain way of thinking and a certain way of navigating in the conscious field when I'm with the Holy Spirit in the likeness of God. And there's a certain expression to it. And when you find that sweet point between those two, you don't have no reason for fear because fear is unnatural to you. It's something that you feel more. You feel the fear, of course, like you can feel the heartbeat, and you can feel like your whole body jittering and the sweat dripping and all that kind of stuff. But you're more aware that this is just like climbing a mountain. You climb up the mountain. It's hot and it's probably also getting colder and the air is getting thinner when you get up there. But when you're at the top and you see, oh my God, Look at all of this. I just climbed the way to the top to see all of this. That was worth it. Let's go down again. It's kind of that. It's kind of just going through with that likeness and image of God, and knowing that God guides you to that specific place that you're supposed to be. Because what's the alternative? Okay, well, if you don't follow the likeness and image of God, you're just gonna go and repeat old patterns in your subconscious programming, and you can expect your old habits and ways of being and everything just to pop up again, or never change, or stuck in a loop or a hamster wheel or something like that. But that likeness and image of God really takes you beyond that fear. It really shows you that you have no reason to fear. You may feel the fear, you may panic over the fear, but just know that beyond that, there's safety, because God sees more than you do. And when you surrender to God, well, there you go.
So inspiring, Jens. Thank you. As crazy as it is, we are at the end of our episode. Time flies by. We have one last question for you, though. What advice do you have for individuals who want to break free from societal expectations and live their life for their own unique path?
So, first things first, follow Jesus, get to know Jesus. Like, this is a guy that was sent here, like God consecrated into a human being, came here on earth to take upon all suffering, go to his own grave and sacrifice himself, just so that we have a chance as humans to actually survive this big chaotic world that is created. That is one thing that you can do. Go to a church and just check it out. It may not be your time, but if it's your time, you'll know it. Another thing is that I would think that people should at least go try that. It's not that, it doesn't have to be complicated. It's just a very simple thing. The one question, the one prayer that I made that made life so abundantly beautiful and changing, and so many other marvelous words that I can't put on right now. The one prayer that I made was, God, please make things simple for me. And when God made things simple for me, everything changed. Like all of these complicated things that I thought were complicated, because I complicated them myself with my ego and my own idea that I have to be an individual self. I have to be myself instead of surrendering myself. That makes a difference. That makes a difference. I think one of the big traps that we experience as human beings, especially young ones, is that we are filled with the constant notion of finding yourself and being yourself. And we think it's all about ourselves all of a sudden. Well, it has nothing to do with ourselves. Nothing at all. It's the complete surrender of who you are, because think about it. Who you are brought you to where you are. So if you're miserable, who brought you there? It's not God per se. I mean, you chose yourself. There's two kinds of people anyway. There's one kind of people that says, God, your will happen. And there's the other group that says, where God says to the people, okay, you get your will for a while and we see what happens. So might as well surrender. Might as well see what it's about.
That's a great message, I think, for our listeners. I hope there's something wonderful that you have taken away from this. I hope that all the beautiful free spirits listening to us can join us in enjoying this beautiful conversation we've had with you today. I want to thank you for being on today with us, and for sharing your inspiring story. And for our free spirits, I hope that this story is a reminder that with love, kindness, and bravery, everything is possible.
That's right. Remember, you are the creator of your own reality. Embrace your own unique path, trust your intuition, and live with purpose. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more inspiring stories and unconventional wisdom. And remember, keep flying upstream.
All right, free spirits, that's all the time we have for today on Flying Upstream.
We hope this episode sparked your curiosity and ignited a desire to explore the extraordinary paths less traveled.
Even when the current feels strong, a whole world of possibilities awaits.
We'll see you next time on the other side of mainstream.
So keep questioning, keep challenging, and most importantly, keep flying upstream.